What's up everyone and welcome back to my series on the Camelot Unchained class reveals, where I talk about Friday's class reveals and how they tie into mythology and my opinions and feelings on what has been presented to us. And I must say, yes, making these videos for Sunday feels right. No idea how I ever got it into my head that I would be able to make them for Saturday. But I'm guessing advancement can only be achieved through experimentation, eh? Anyway, the community once again spoke and the voted letter was G. And it turned out to be the Scouts. And it is without a doubt the most interesting class trio revealed so far. Don't get me wrong, I really like the shapeshifters, but shapeshifters aren't an entirely new concept for classes. These Scouts, on the other hand, are entirely new. There have been similar support classes in other games like RF Online, but there has never been a PvP game with a class that did not focus on combat at all. Yes, you heard right. These classes will not be apt at combat whatsoever. They may have debuffs or crowd control or other manners of utility and also other manners of annoying things like traps. But these are not assassins, mages or warriors. These classes are explorers, spies, military intelligence. They observe, assess, and then report their findings to their faction. City and castle locations, guard and troop strength, army movements, caravan movements, mining excursions. No organized military has ever worked without scouts. They are the eyes and ears of every army. They are just as important as swords and warriors to wield them. And if you've ever done the Bartle test before, this class was made for people who score incredibly highly in Explorer. And even if you rank very low in Killer and are generally not a fan of PvP, you're still going to be able to get something out of this class because you're not expected to kill other people. You're just supposed to look at them disapprovingly and then go tell on them. The scout class for the Arthurian faction is the Specter. Now, sadly, I don't know of any folklore stories that would match this class. Maybe I'm missing something entirely obvious, but the backstory on the website also wasn't exactly helpful. But what I do know, when there's something weird or spooky in Welsh mythology, it's a good bet to look at Annwn, the other world, where Arrawn lives with his pleasant pet doggies. Now once again I want to make this very clear. Annwn, or most of the other worlds described in all of Celtic mythology, are not hell. Polytheistic religions pretty much never have hells because they're not organized, and so they don't run on fear and repression, and as such they don't have a need for an afterlife boogeyman to keep everyone in line. Instead, people were just afraid of nature. When you're living in a deep dark forest, there's plenty of scary shit all around you. No need for the devil. Instead, you're afraid of things that go bump in the night and eat your only goat that you're relying on for basic survival. And Annwn was where all the strange beasties lived, and Arrawn is their king. In Camelot Unchained, the Specter is a rather average bloke. Nothing weird about him at all, until he splits off his ghostly appendage and goes off to scare the neighbors. The Specter can switch freely between his shade form and his physical body. Taking shade form will leave the physical body behind, and rather defenseless. The shade is harder to spot and has various abilities to mark and debuff enemies. It also moves much faster than the physical body ever could. The advantage of this is that it's not a big deal to lose your shade form because you just get teleported back to your physical body. On the other hand, your physical body is still around when you're in shade form and vulnerable to enemy attack. The scout class for the two-headed Danann is the Wisp. Will-o'-the-Wisp are a rather prominent folktale in any region with large swampy areas. They go under many different names: Swamp Light, Corpse Light, Ghost Light, Friar's Lantern, Jack-o'-lantern, Hinky Punk, Irrlicht, Irrwisch. Yes, that's right, it's not even just Celtic. They exist in Germanic folklore as well. And it's Slavic folklore, South American folklore, African folklore, North American folklore. The reason for this is that they are based on an actually existing phenomenon of small pale blue lights that appear in swampy areas that lead travelers away from their path. And the reason that it's such a popular folktale is that there really isn't a conclusive scientific explanation for the phenomena. There are a few theories like bioluminescence, or that they are spontaneously combusting swamp gases, but it never has conclusively explained, and those are the sort of myths that stick around. Anyway, in the olden days, people thought them to be spirits of the dead, fairies, goblins, or pukas carrying torches. Generally malignant spirits trying to kill people by luring them into the swamp and away from the path. In Camelot Unchained, the Wisp is a scout carrying a lantern, which itself houses the Wisp. The player can switch control between the Scout and the Wisp. The Wisp isn't bound to the Scout, it's bound to the lantern, and the lantern can be dropped. That means the Scout could run out, drop the lantern somewhere safe behind a tree or a rock where nobody will hopefully find it, and then could run all the way back to their city to be safe while exploring as the Wisp. And as long as the lantern isn't picked up or destroyed, the Wisp can just keep exploring the area. Beyond all the spying, the Wisp manipulates light. Camelot Unchained will have truly dark nights, which can make light a very important resource for RVR. A Wisp could illuminate a group of enemy in the darkness, making it easier for his realm mates to pick them off. Or they could maybe shine a spotlight on a group of camouflaged archers. Or perhaps they could even take enemies' lights away, blinding them for a duration. There's all sorts of cool implications with light manipulation that I'm really excited for. And then last but certainly not least, we come to the Viking Scout class, which is the Arisen. Alright, on this one I would like to construct an argument. So just to give you an idea, these guys are based on the Draaga or the Drog, just depending on which dead language you prefer, which for all intents and purposes are a sort of Viking Germanic zombie. Now I think this is cool class design. It's a cool and neat idea that makes for a very interesting scout class, and one that is very different from those of the other two factions. And because it is such a cool class, in my opinion, it deserves a cool name. No offense to City State Entertainment, but I hate the name Arisen even more than I hated Black Rider. It's rather generic and very sort of average fantasy. Now I understand that a name like Jormungandr or Tuhad Danan is difficult to pronounce. Even the Irishmen in my comment section argue over the correct pronunciation of Tuhad Danan. But Drog and Dullahan are not that hard to pronounce. And honestly, I would think that interesting and unique classes with cool names is what we'd want in Camelot Unchained. So I'm putting this forward to the community. What do you think? Cool, authentic, original names such as Dullahan, Drog, and Mjolnir, or boring, generic D&D fantasy stuff like Black Rider, Arisen, and Thunder Warrior? Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll collect the information and post the findings on the official forums to start a discussion about this. Anyway, that out of the way, the Draugr are zombies, but not mindless zombies. They're not your modern sort of The Walking Dead zombie that go around and eat the living. They're a lot more like the mummies and tomb guardians from Egyptian folklore. They protect the barrows and tombs in which they are buried from intruders, and fight with weapons just as they did in life. They're Germanic warriors who willingly sacrifice themselves to protect their lords and kings even in death. Similarly, in Camelot Unchained, the Draaga must sacrifice themselves to take on their undead form. They can then scout around their tombstone, but are tethered to it. The benefit is of course that there's no original body left behind that somebody could sneak up to and kill while you're not looking. But to pay for that, they can't stray as far from their tombstones as the Specter and the Wisp can stray from their corporeal forms. Beyond that, they can also mark enemies for their realm and debuff them to slow their movement. Personally, if any of these classes would have any sort of combat ability, I think the Draaga would be the most appropriate, seeing as to where they came from mythologically. But then again, combat doesn't have to mean they slice people into tiny kibbles with their swords. It could just be that they have more direct combat involvement with debuffs and crowd control than the other two. Alright, now that we looked at all three of the classes, let's get to the scoring. I am giving a point to all three factions. Yep, you heard it right. I am not picking a winner out of these three because that, honestly, in my opinion, would be criminal. These classes, their implications, and the unique playstyles they promise are fantastic. I simply cannot pick a favorite out of these three because they are all so unique and cool. I think this is the first class where I would really say that City State Entertainment have completely outdone themselves. Now don't get me wrong, I love the shapeshifters and I also think that the Devout were really awesome. But these three classes are truly unique. There just is no other PvP focused MMORPG that has classes just like this. As I mentioned in the beginning, some other games have played with the idea of scout classes, but generally all that really means is that they have a bunch of debuffs and sort of marked target effects, but they are still combat classes in a way. And these classes are so much more, and I think that is brilliant, and I cannot wait to see how they fit into the game and what sorts of cool abilities they are going to have. But that is it for this week. If you enjoyed the class reveals so far, please consider liking and subscribing, and if you have any feedback, leave it in the comments. Next week I would like all of you to vote for H, because I really cannot wait for that reveal, I must say it. But until then, I've been the Cloaking Donkey, and I'll see you in another video.